this principle. They also want to see that those they have elected are fulfilling their requirements as they promised to them as voters that they will do that. And they get a first-hand impression of that. So, what shall they do with that information? Bring it together, compile it as accurate observations of performance, and try and instruct the rest of the community as to their findings, so the rest of the community is able to then provide for whatever the best candidates to sit behind that table. And it seems that the idea of a citizen's evaluation has caught on. And people very religiously filled out the form without their names, so it makes it very objective and fair. And such, over a 2-year period, I now have a compilation. This compilation is not personal, but an opinion, as much as you might an opinion of a survey or whatever, which is public information. So I wish to present this information as public information from educated, concerned citizens here to educate the rest of the people at large. So I will read off, we concerned educated citizens, what we think of you, based upon how we feel to educate other voters. Based upon rating of 0 to 4, 4 being excellent, 0 being poor, with gradients marginal, fair to good, we found out that Ms. Belinsky was rated 2.0. Mr. DiCrescento was 3.4. Ms. Dolan was 2.5. Mr. Donches was 2.7. Mr. Evans was 2.7. Mr. Reynolds, Gordon Maurer was 1.9. And Mr. Reynolds was 1.4. This is what we thought in terms of observing our elected officials. But the public needs to know this. Now, on a positive note, I was very impressed specifically that the member of council who got the highest number of votes, giving him 3.4, based upon 4 being excellent to 3 being good, that this member of council didn't get 0. That impressed me. And meaning that there's a message there. So I want you to know that this is what we concerned educated citizens have found out, and it's some way if we can communicate this to citizens at large, so when it's time to choose who sits there, that we make our best decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shire.
Bill Shire, 1890 Eaton Avenue. If I took my notes correctly, the committee meeting on the bylaws is scheduled for Wednesday, October 25th. However, today being the 18th, the 25th would be a Tuesday. So I thought maybe it'd be good to clear it up right now in case I'm not the only one who misunderstood.
Wednesday the 26th. Mr. Shaw, you're still at the mic.
6:30. Jack Abel was asking, and I think it was 6:30, right?
Yes,
And what day is it?
the 26th,
26th, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Any other public comment?
Craig Weidman, Craig Weidman, 460 Carlton Avenue. Last week I had attended a public meeting that was held by the Postal Service. Many of you, probably all of you on council are aware that The Southside Post Office has been one of 3,700 offices nationwide that has been put on a study list, and this meeting was designed to get input from citizens. As a resident of Southside, actually living just a few blocks from the post office, walk there frequently, decided to attend just to see what was going on. I had a couple of questions myself. One of the things that was presented at the meeting by the middle managers who were sent there by higher ups in the Postal Service to provide some information and then hopefully to answer questions. One of the pieces of information that was provided had to do with how a particular post office got on the list of 3,700. You're probably familiar with that. It had to do with a couple of factors. One of the main factors had to do with revenues attributed to a particular local post office. And one of the main factors driving the closures is trying to find a way to close a $9 billion nationwide postal service deficit. And so it seemed to me that obviously you'll look at revenues, but to me, I would wonder, is a particular office not just what are the revenues, but is it underperforming or overperforming? So I had posed a question, which I found interesting, this question to me. If somebody was sent to have a public meeting and to answer questions, they should have the answer to a question like, is this particular post office underperforming? Is it losing money? And the answer to that question was, we don't know. I got the sense from many in that room who were Southside residents, as well as some others in the city who had attended, a great deal of consternation with these kinds of answers to a number of questions. And I don't necessarily fault the middle managers who were sent. I don't know whether they had the information and decided not to bring it with them or share it, or whether it was just not provided to them. But it would seem to me if the main reason of closing a post office is to close a deficit, you ought at least have an answer as to whether that particular post office under consideration is in fact contributing to that deficit or not. I do know that some public officials in the city of Bethlehem have been writing to the congressmen as well as postal service officials. I would urge administration as well as council members to continue conversations with such. This particular post office, in my view, unless it is significantly underperforming, shouldn't be on the list in the first place. And now, just because it's on the list doesn't mean it will be closed, and I would trust that the Postal Service does their study well. But I'm concerned that it's even on the list in the first place if we can't even be told if it's underperforming or not. And then secondly, the fact that it is in a part of the city and its particular location is such that for me, if it moves out of Southside, I walk to the post office now. If I have to do business, it won't really impact me greatly. It'll be a slight inconvenience to drive over to the north side and go to one of the post offices here. But I have neighbors. I have an immediate neighbor, and many in my neighborhood who don't have cars, some who can't drive. There are many senior citizens who live in Southside, who for them it would be more than just a minor inconvenience. It would be a considerable inconvenience and a challenge. For the post office, certainly they need to close their budget deficit. But as a quasi-governmental agency, they are in one sense a business. And any good business would look to say, is this particular outlet underperforming or not? That makes sense to me. But secondly, because there is a public sector function to the Postal Service, they need to be looking at factors beyond just the business of it. And when you go beyond that, this particular post office has a particular public service imperative for why it should be even slower to be considered for closure. So I would ask public officials and certainly residents to keep up the pressure on congressmen as well as postal service officials to keep the Southside Post Office open.
Thank you. Ms. Pongratz?
My name is Mary Pongratz. I live at 321 West 4th Street, and I'm one of those old Southside residents. But be that as it may, I'm a little bit concerned about some of the statements made. I'm on the Southside Historic Conservation Commission. We are dealing with some of the factors as hard. That is preservation and technology. How do we get them to work together? What is my charge as a member of a historic commission? And it becomes a very fine line for those of us who are serving on these commissions to do what we think is right. I, however, find that it never serves any purpose to be confrontational with a governing body. Yes, I have disagreed with some of the proposals that have been made to the South Bethlehem Historic Commission. I have made my views known. I have voted yes or no as I saw fit. When it came to council, it is your decision as to whether or not you accept the proposal. We are coming at the situation from different angles. Is it more important to preserve an AWLA building, or is it not important to preserve an AWLA building and put solar collectors on the top of the building? We are going to face this problem in the years to come just as we do now. Where do we draw the line, and how do we marry, if that's the word, preservation and technology, and be true to what a historic conservation commission does? And I think it's incumbent upon council to really understand where we are coming from, so that we are not being fuddy-duddy. We're trying to be, too much of the history of Bethlehem has been lost already. Once something is written out of the book, it dies. I know that. I've lived a long time. When I talk about West Bethlehem, Vineyard Street, the Marina Court, etc., and people will say, oh, where's that? When I talk about 1st and 2nd Street, well, we rejuvenated 2nd Street with the 2nd Street ramp. But I think it serves no purpose for us to be confrontational. But the fact of the matter is, there will be, in the years to come, a very, very gray area. What is more important? Preservation, technology, how do we make both of them work to serve the purpose of keeping the history of the city of Bethlehem alive? I know I gave you a lot to think about, but you're all very bright. And just one more comment. If the citizens group can get up here and rate you, City Council, you have the same right to get up and rate me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? If not, this meeting is adjourned.